Here I've got a 2006 Chrysler 300 with the 5.7 V8. It's here for 2 or 3 issues. One of them is he wants the front stabilizer links done, so that just has to get done. Second issue is there is a purge code. He's already gone ahead and changed the purge valve. As you can see right there, it looks relatively new. It looks like it might be a Duralast unit. So it says we have a circuit code with the purge valve. So all I simply did was unplugged the purge valve and plugged in one of my Noid lights, and we can use our scanner to activate it and see if all the wiring integrity is fine. So I already got the data pin pulled up. I'm gonna go straight to 50% because it's what they allow me to do. As soon as I hit 50%, there we go. So I'm gonna try to drop it down to 20%, and there that goes right there. Let's turn it off. And now let's go back to 50%. So everything is good. The circuit code is being set because this new purge valve is pretty much garbage. So I took the purge valve off of the car. I put power directly to it using a power probe, and the valve opens up just fine. I could blow air through it once it's opened up. You know, that doesn't really mean anything that it opens up. Maybe it's not made to the standards of the OEM unit, which I'm sure it's not. And there is a part number on this thing, and I tried to look it up, and it just comes up as like generic, like AutoZone part, or even a Amazon part, you know. So we're going to go ahead and get a OEM part ordered. We'll put that on and cross our fingers. Next thing is, let's start looking at this coolant leak. Honestly, the guy left it here overnight, and before I moved the car, I looked underneath it to see, you know, hopefully a puddle of coolant. There wasn't anything, so who knows? Maybe there's no coolant in it to begin with. Yeah, it's looking pretty empty, guys. It's hard to see, but I could see it's pretty empty. We're gonna have to put coolant in it before we could pressure test anything. See, normally I would just add water so we're not wasting antifreeze, because we know it's gonna leak out, right? But in middle of winter, that's not an option. Water does not go in cars in the winter. So the owner had a gallon of antifreeze in a car that he told me about. It was brand new, said I could use it, and this thing took the entire gallon, and it looks like it could probably still take more. Just by adding that and looking underneath the car, I'm not seeing anything dripping. What you're seeing on the ground hasn't been dripping off of this car. So I've been keeping an eye on it. So far, nothing. So got the pressure tester connected. I've got it to about 15 psi. So let's go ahead and leave it right there and see if it starts to move. So far, we don't have a dramatic leak. You can see it's holding pressure. If it was a large leak, that pressure would just start dropping immediately. And again, I just looked underneath the car. I don't see anything dripping. So it's actually been over an hour. Went in the house, decided to have a cup of coffee. Over an hour, and that's where we're at. I'm looking underneath the car. You know what? I do see something that's new. Right there. See that little spot? That was not there. And if you look at the gauge, it isn't where we left it. It did drop just a hair, a little bit. And if you look straight down from here, see the wet spot? But it's definitely the radiator. It's coming right off of the side tank right there, like the crimp on the plastic tank. I could see it leaking. I won't be able to show you guys, it's just too much of a confined space, but definitely the radiator. It's not coming from the hose up here and working its way down. I could actually see at the crimp down there where it looks wet. Let me put my hand's completely dry underneath this hose and see if anything wet comes out. Who knows, maybe it is working its way down. Uh-oh. We do have a little bit, guys. Could it just be working its way from up here? This is a tough one because it's such a minor leak that it's hard to tell. sure I could say it's wet over there by the crimp on the tank, like I just said. But now that we feel there's some moisture up here, it could easily just be working its way down. So what do we do here? Look at this thermostat housing. Look how rotted away that is. What we could try is replacing this upper hose, as well as the clamps, and even this thermostat housing, only because it looks so freaking nasty. And trying to get something like this to reseal with all this rust on it just makes it a nightmare. So if I were to replace this upper hose, I would also replace the thermostat housing as well as the thermostat. You're going in there, you might as well replace it. So I think that's what the owner's gonna do, of course, because it's way cheaper to replace this than it is the entire radiator, right? And here's the thing, if I was coming in here to do this radiator, I would replace this hose and this thermostat and housing at the same time anyway. But I'm sure the owner's always gonna want to go with the cheapest route possible, which is understandable. So I'm sure he's gonna say, yeah, let's try replacing this and the clamp right here and see if it takes care of that minor leak. If after the new parts go on and we still have that little bit of drip coming off the bottom of the radiator, then it needs a radiator. There's no way around it. All right, so I've been looking into this a little bit more, guys, and it's not looking good. You can see I got my mirror set up right there. So this is the bottom of the hose. You see the clamp right there, and the spot that my finger was touching, you could see the little wet spot right there, okay? And that's where I felt that little bit of moisture on the bottom of this hose. But if you look at the rest of the radiator, that moisture or that seepage is not working its way down. If you look in all of this area right here, this right here is going down, okay? So if that were dripping from the very top of the radiator and working its way all the way to the bottom where I'm seeing it, all of this right here would be wet, and it's not. It's simply just not working its way all the way to the bottom. We just have two different leaks. This upper hose is just seeping very, very slowly, nothing major at all. And what I'm seeing down there is the crimp on the tank leaking. So yeah, it's two different issues, guys. The main one being the actual radiator, and this up here is just a very minor leak. So I'll let the owner know, and of course, like I said, if we're doing a radiator, all this crap is getting replaced as well. So we're back with this Chrysler 300, and we have all the parts in. So let's go ahead and get started on this thing. I've already started draining the radiator down there, and first thing I want to do is let's go ahead and remove the thermostat. All right, so I got this disconnected, and I want to go ahead and separate these two only because I want to reuse this clamp right here. I like these clamps rather than the type that you screw on like that one, so I want to try to reuse this one. We have a new housing and new hose, so we don't need any of this crap. Anyway, with that out of the way, you can see all the crap that's built up on the thermostat itself, and this explains why I couldn't drain the radiator. Here goes the plug for the radiator, and no matter how much I screwed it out, it wasn't draining. I had to just pull the entire plug out, and then everything just came flowing out. So yeah, this you know, essentially the cooling system gets clogged with crap like this. So now, before moving on, I wanted to take care of this whole thermostat housing. You can see it turned out really nice. So I had to go through a few different steps. The first one is I used a standard blade to just get rid of the big chunks. Then I came in with a carbide, and this thing, you really got to be careful with it. And this was just to clean up some of the things that were really stubborn and really stuck on there. You got to make sure you keep it at the right angle because you can gouge the aluminum housing and cause some damage, and you don't want that. So be careful with this. Third step was a standard wire wheel that I attached to my die grinder here, and I use this to come inside of here and get on that lip right where the thermostat is going to seat, because there was a bunch of corrosion on this lip right here. So got that all cleaned up. Looks pretty good to me. The final step was a 3M white basically a plastic brush. That's what it really is. I don't know how else to describe it, and it does a great job at prepping surfaces. As you can see, it gets the surface looking really nice and uniform. And no, it doesn't remove metal. It won't even remove aluminum. Of course, don't go pushing on it all crazy or anything like that, but if you use it how it's intended to be used, it won't remove any aluminum, and you can see how nicely it preps the surface. Now, as far as all this crap inside of here, that's embedded, that's like baked on to the housing. You're not going to get rid of that, and trying to get rid of it is a complete waste of time. It doesn't matter. This stuff is throughout the entire engine inside the cooling system. What does it matter if you were to clean it up right here? You get what I'm saying? So I'm gonna go ahead and leave that alone for now. I'm not gonna put the new thermostat on or anything like that, because we need to get this radiator out here and we need as much space as possible. If I were to put the thermostat and the housing in place, it would just interfere with that. So I got the air box out of the way. You can see I just got it sitting right there. It's not gonna move, it's not going anywhere. And I figure, you know what, let me go ahead and knock out the purge valve. Super easy to change, sitting right here. This is the old one. As you can see, the owner went to the dealer and he got an original part. So let's take this bad boy out of its packaging and see what it looks like compared to that aftermarket one. Who am I kidding? They're probably exactly the same, and you probably won't be able to tell the difference between them. Well, there is a slight difference. You can see, like, for example, this one, the aftermarket one, just has like a screw on top and that's it. This one looks like it may have a screw and maybe some epoxy inside of there. There's a part number right there. I don't know what that number is for. See, it says 04591, whereas this one over here has nothing on it. Look at this number on the side right here. The number is exactly the same, but you can see it's almost like a different font. You can see how that is a much larger, like thicker font. And then look at the OEM. Who knows that? I mean, I know this stuff really doesn't mean anything, but just because it has the same numbers on it doesn't mean anything. These things are made in China, and they could stamp whatever they want on it. They could stamp the exact OEM number onto it and get away with it. It's not going to matter. Let's go ahead and pop the OEM one on and get this thing all set. We can move on. So I got the fan assembly and the radiator out of the car. Now, if you look along the side right here, all of this looks perfect right until you get to the bottom down here. And if you look very closely, it's hard for you guys to see, but there is little crusties right inside of this crimped area, and it even works its way down underneath this corner. But at any rate, the owner said he saw coolant on the floor, wants it fixed. So we got all that taken out, and I think we're making good progress here. You can see I got everything ready, got this all cleaned up like I showed you guys already. So let's go ahead and get the new radiator and pop this bad boy in. I've got the new radiator in place, as well as the fan assembly. I still have to plug it in right here. Got the new thermostat in place, and make sure to put the little bleed valve right on top. And look how perfect and clean all that looks. And there we have it. All the new parts are on, and look how nice and clean all of this stuff looks. Now, I know I said I was going to reuse the original clamp, but that thing just looks so nasty, and it just kind of collided with everything that's going on here since everything's brand new. So I decided to just use the clamps that we ordered, which is, you know, this one. So it's sealing nice and tight. That thing is nice and snug. And guys, let me tell you one thing. Cover your bases when you're working on someone's car. If you sell a thermostat, okay, if you sell the job to someone and they say, okay, fine, go ahead, do it. And then you see a old, which is most likely the original hose, right? And then you see this housing, and look at all the rust on it, right? And God knows what's inside of it. This is a perfect example. Look at that mess. Cover your bases. Order all the parts you did. It's why I ordered new clamps, a new hose, and a new housing, because you're going to be fighting this. This may be a potential comeback. Look at the silicone here. The last person that was in here to change the thermostat, he was fighting a constant leak. That's why he had to use silicone. Don't be that guy. Don't be that guy that you keep getting screwed over by a job, all because you wanted to reuse a $5 part and a $12 hose. You get what I'm saying? These parts are dirt cheap. If you sell someone a thermostat or any job, okay, and if there's little tiny pieces that are dirt cheap and it's going to make your job way easier, just go ahead and order the parts. Not only is it going to make your job easier, it's going to save you time while doing the job. Because look, I took off that whole assembly. As soon as it came off, basically push it aside, throw it in the trash. You don't need it. You don't got to waste any of your time on that thing, because you got everything brand new. And then here's another thing. When a customer opens up his hood and he looks at the work you did, trust me, a lot of people do this. You may not think they do, but they do. Everyone wants to see what they paid for, okay? So if this guy opens up his hood and he sees all of this, sure, he could believe you that the new thermostat is in there. You could even give him the old part if you wanted to, so he knows it has a new thermostat. But still, you're there looking at your car and you're like, man, I paid X amount of money, and you know, this is what I'm looking at on my car, versus him opening up the hood and he sees this. There is no comparison, guys. Cover your bases, work smart, get your job done easier, faster, and make the customer happier. It's about 8:30 p.m. and guys, I'm throwing in the towel. It's a little late. I'm just tired already. So this car doesn't have to be done tonight anyway, so it's not a big deal. But what I do want to do is go ahead and fill up the cooling system right now with coolant. I'm not going to bleed it or anything. I'm not starting up this car tonight. I'm just going to put the coolant in the system, and that way tomorrow I could come in here with a mirror and start just checking for leaks. Of course, it's not pressurized, but it's a good starting point. So let me go ahead and add the coolant, and that'll be it for tonight. It's now the next morning. Oh, who am I kidding, guys? It's afternoon. I don't wake up till like afternoon. So the coolant, I left it right at the very top last night, and I would say it dropped maybe about an inch, which is what I was expecting, you know, as it lets some of the air out of the system. I looked at it real fast. I don't see any leaks. Let me grab a mirror and we'll start inspecting things. So the lower radiator hose, I can't really show you guys because it just isn't enough space, but I looked at it myself and it's nice and dry. Here, I'm gonna just try to get you guys inside of here. It's much easier than using the mirror. So there goes the mating surface of the new flange and the engine, and you can see there is nothing under here, guys. Nice and dry, nothing at all. If we come under here, again, nice and dry right where this hose is mating up against the radiator. Hopefully you guys can see that. And of course, the coolant level is above all of this because our coolant level is like right here right now. So that's, you know, above all of this stuff. So you know, all of this is filled with coolant right now, and it sat like that overnight. We're looking a-okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and put everything back together. So all of this is pretty much done. As you can see or hear, the engine is running. I already bled the cooling system. We have nice hot air blowing out of the dash. The fans are turning on when they're supposed to. Everything's looking really good. I got this thing right where I want it. I'm gonna let the system cool off completely. It's gonna sit here because I still have to do the stabilizer links. And once it's completely cooled off, I'll see if I have to top it off a little bit more. But that's about it. So let me go ahead and get started on these front stabilizer links, and that'll be it for this turd. So I'm all done with the front stabilizer links. You can see there goes the old ones, and here we have the new ones installed. Now I'm using Delphi units. I don't know, I tend to like Delphi products. They seem to be really good quality to me, and on top of that, I've noticed that Delphi has been the OEM supplier for many manufacturers. It's just like random little parts that you take off of cars that are OEM, you'll see it'll say Delphi on it. So whenever I get a chance, if I'm not buying OEM, I like to go for Delphi if I can over Moog. I don't know, to me the quality of Moog has just gone down, and they just, to me, they're overpriced crap at this point. So I like Delphi. Anyway, this side is all done as well. And here's another point. I know I'm beating a dead horse here, but look at this. The old design had a nut on it, and then you got to put a wrench on the backside to hold it, which, I mean, it works, but it's kind of shitty sometimes. And that's the aftermarket design. This is more like the OEM design. If you get this car brand new, this is what it's like. It has a nut right here, and then the outer part of the shaft or the shank has a 10 mil head on it. So you could put a 10 mil ratchet, wrench, whatever you want to hold the shaft while you remove the nut. And I really like this design. And it just goes to show, again, how Delphi is an OEM supplier for a lot of manufacturers for different parts. So the stabilizer links are all done. The car is back on the ground, and the cooling system has had plenty of time to cool off. The coolant was previously like right here, okay, and now it's dropped down to about right here. So now I'm gonna go ahead and fill it up to the max and put the cap on it. This thing's all set. And great, more snow. I'm so done with winter. On a scale of 1 to 10, I can't even.